What connects the latest copper-plated icon in your pocket, a portrait nearly as old as modern America, and a rare misstrike that can fetch more than 10,000 times its face value? It's the story of the 2019 Lincoln cent, and by the end of this segment, you'll know why a humble penny, minted just a few years ago, has collectors buzzing. Settle in, because we're about to uncover how a coin made for everyday transactions became a must-have trophy in top numismatic circles. More than a century ago, in 1909, the United States Mint introduced a new penny to honor Abraham Lincoln's centennial birth. Victor David Brenner's dignified profile replaced the Liberty head, making it the first American coin to feature a real person. For that transition, the public embraced both the honoree and the artistry. Fast forward to 2019, Lincoln's portrait still graces the obverse, but the mint mark and tiny details quietly evolved over time. What began as a celebration of history has, in its modern iterations, spawned a fresh set of quirks that separate the run-of-the-mill from the marvelously rare. Although the overall look feels familiar, Lincoln facing right, the word "Liberty" at his shoulder, the 2019 penny sports the Union Shield on its reverse. Introduced in 2010, Frank Gasparo's 12-barred shield recalls the nation's unity after the Civil War. Under that shield, a scroll bears the motto, 1 cent, a nod to simpler denominations that once dominated American commerce. Yet what truly sets 2019 pieces apart isn't the design itself but the small variances born of modern mass production, minute die rotations, subtle doubling, and the occasional planchet flaw. Inside the mint's automated presses, millions of copper-plated zinc blanks cycle through at lightning speed. Most emerge looking indistinguishable from one another, each weighing 2.5 grams and measuring 19.05 millimeters in diameter. But every so often, a blank slips just a fraction out of place, creating an off-center strike that could leave as much as half the design missing. Collectors prize these oddities. Even more coveted are double die reverses, where part of the shield seems ghosted or echoed just behind the primary image. Spotting one requires a sharp eye, or a blown-up photograph, but once identified, it instantly upgrades the coin's pedigree. The market has responded accordingly. Ordinary 2019 pennies in circulated condition trade for face value, 1 cent shift to mint state, say MS63, and you might see prices rise to 10 or 15 cents. At MS65, uncirculated examples with full mint luster often fetch between $1 and $2. But the headline grabbers are error coins. In recent auctions, an off-center 2019 P specimen graded MS64 by a leading service carried an opening bid of over $800, closing at $1,200. Meanwhile, a rare 2019 D double die reverse, so slight that many catalogs overlooked it for months, surfaced in MS66 Plus, commanding nearly $2,000 when it changed hands at a major sale. Behind each of those sale numbers lies a story worth telling. One collector recalls acquiring an off-center cent at a local coin show, paying face value, then watching his phone buzz with offers days later. Another enthusiast discovered an RPM, repunched mint mark, variety when revisiting a pocket change folder, the tiny D at 7 o'clock showing a shadowy double impression. Online forums lit up as hobbyists swapped high-resolution scans and debated attribution. Those communal eureka moments help fuel the chase, transforming what could be a solitary hobby into a vibrant, collective thrill. As condition climbs, the premiums skyrocket. A circulated off-center cent might bring $50 to $100, depending on how much of the design is visible. At mint state, the same error in the MS67 range can breach 4 figures with ease. Coin-grade scales amplify the story in sharp relief, every tiny scuff removed, every microscopic strike flaw revealed becomes part of its appeal. Collectors often compare a mint state off-center with a classic series piece in circulated grades, and the value gap tells a story about modern minting as much as it does about demand. Ready to move from the youngest face in our lineup to a mid-century classic with its own lore? Up next, we'll journey back nearly half a century to examine the 1970 Lincoln cent, another everyday coin that, in select guises, has become a legend in numismatic circles. Just as today's pennies hide surprises beneath their copper jackets, those older cents hold secrets worth seeking. Stick around, because the next discovery might be the one you didn't know you owned. Sliding back a few decades, the 1970 Lincoln cent carries its own air of mystery, born in an era when copper still rang true in commerce, yet quietly ushering in die varieties that would become legendary among specialists. As buffalo coats gave way to spaceships and Vietnam protests filled the headlines, this modest 1-cent piece captured a snapshot of industrial precision, and, in select examples, spectacular minting mishaps that collectors still chase today. The story begins at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, where over 693 million planchets were struck in 1970 alone, each one a 19mm canvas of 95% copper bonded to 5% zinc. Victor Brenner's time-honored portrait of Lincoln continued its century-long reign on the obverse, framed by "In God We Trust" above and the date to the right. Flip it over and you find Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959, with E Pluribus Unum arching above and 1 cent nestled below. By 1970, collectors had settled into two primary date styles: the large date variant, where the digits of 70 stand confidently apart, and the small date version, with tighter, more compressed numerals. The small date saw a lighter strike on the 7, giving it a subtle, almost shy appearance, while the large date's bolder profile easily catches the eye. Each is straightforward to identify under a loupe, yet appreciating their nuance takes time and comparison. What really sends seasoned numismatists scrambling for their folders, though, is the 1970s large date double die obverse, FS101, an understated titan of rarity. Here, part of Liberty or even "In God We Trust" repeats like an echo, as though the die received a second tap slightly offset from the first. Experts rate this variety as URS5, suggesting fewer than 16 known survivors across all grades. The shift is most dramatic on the date and the T of trust, where the ghost image appears clinched just clockwise of the main relief. Another elusive sibling is the repunched mint mark, RPM, on Denver strikes. Look closely at the tiny D at 6 o'clock on the reverse, and you might spot a faint double curve, evidence of a mint worker adjusting the punch and hitting the blank twice. Although less dramatic than the DDO, RPM varieties still pique interest because they speak to human hands guiding each piece through machinery humming like a jet engine. In everyday circulation, a 1970 cent passes by for face value. A folder of circulated examples may fetch a few dollars at a coin show, essentially a nominal premium over change. But shift into mint state territory and you'll notice immediate gains. MS-63 coins often bring between 50 cents and $1 apiece, while MS-65 specimens, glossier, with barely a nick, typically trade for $2 to $5, depending on eye appeal and color intensity. Proof coins from San Francisco cut an even cleaner image, with deep mirror fields and frost-touched devices. A well-preserved proof example in PR67 DCAM, Deep Cameo, can command $10 to $15 in today's market. The proof mintages hovered around 12 million, small by comparison to business strikes, and their silky finish still delights collectors who prize cameo contrasts. When it comes to the headline grabbers, error varieties rewrite the value chart. A 1970s large-date DDO graded PCGS MS66RD set an auction record of $24,150 back on January 3, 2001, a staggering marker for a coin that began its life in change. Some years later, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation certified a red MS65 example that sold privately at $22,500, underscoring how tight populations at each grade fuel fierce bidding. Even an MS64BN, brown, specimen brought $3,675 when it crossed the block on eBay in April 2013. Collecting anecdotes swirl around these finds. One hobbyist recalls scoring a faintly double-date cent while sorting through a box of pocket change, paying just a penny but cashing in on envy when word leaked online. Another recounts scanning his mint set under magnification, then stumbling upon an RPM D so subtle it took 3 experienced eyes to confirm. Each discovery sets off a flurry of shared photographs and chatter on specialist forums, feeding that communal thrill of, "Did you see this?" Beyond doubling and punched twice mint marks, surface quirks can blossom into sought-after oddities. Planchet laminations sometimes peel or curl at the rim, hinting at impurities trapped during metal rolling. Strike-throughs from grease or debris can lace the fields with random hairlines, and die cracks can spiderweb from Lincoln's forehead. While not as headline-worthy as DDOs, these varieties still carve out niches in registry sets and build a more complete picture of mint operations. As eye appeal climbs, so does value. An MS-67 specimen, shimmering with original red luster, might cross at $50 or more, especially if fully struck through the fields. For large date and small date regular strikes, MS-68 is virtually the ceiling, reserved for coins so pristine that no further improvement seems possible. Proof 70 cameo strikes occasionally exist in collector cabinets, but they tend to hang on to those pieces rather than risk them at auction. Conditionally, the math looks like this: circulated cents ring in at face value up to a few cents, MS-63 lands you in the 50 cent to $1 range, MS-65 dances around $2 to $5, proof PR-67 cameo around $10 to $15, while error highlights soar from hundreds into the thousands depending on grade. A single-digit shift in the MS-65 realm can add tens of thousands when populations are counted on one hand. Behind the scenes, grading services play a pivotal role. The PCGS population report lists fewer than 100 of the 1970s large-date DDO in MS-64, with steep drop-offs at each higher grade. NGC reports even fewer examples at MS-65 plus and virtually none graded MS-66 or above. This scarcity profile, documented and verified by trusted third parties, underpins confident pricing, and gives buyers and sellers a benchmark they can trust. It's tempting to think that every 1970 cent sitting in your change drawer could be a market-shaking error, but reality tempers that excitement. For every FS101 DDO, thousands of run-of-the-mill cents clutter the rolls. Yet that low odds ratio only heightens the rush when a true find emerges. Dealers frequently remind novices to check mint sets, local bank rolls, and even old stamp packets, any source that might hide mint state survivors handed off decades ago. Collectors often pursue the 1970s DDO as a centerpiece for thematic albums, surrounding it with other top-tier double dies from 1955, 1958, or 1972. Side by side, the shifting hubs tell a story of evolving technology, from the hand-hardened dies of mid-century presses to the more uniform single-squeeze methods that would arrive later. In that context, the 1970s example feels like a bridge between eras, modern enough to look fresh, yet flawed enough to spark fascination. If your pathway leads you to this 1970 landmark, consider having both obverse and reverse imaged under high magnification. Document the doubling location, the extent of die cracks, and any surface features. Specialists recommend sending candidates in for grading only if the doubling is clear to the naked eye. Otherwise, the submission fees may outweigh potential returns. Even for seasoned collectors, sub $100 finds in ungraded raw form can still deliver plenty of enjoyment and learning. As the sun sets on our exploration of the 1970 Lincoln cent, its blend of mass-produced familiarity and rare excitement stands out. Which brings us to our final subject, the 1997 penny, minted at the dawn of the digital age. Its story takes place against a backdrop of changing metals, evolving mint marks, and the collectible quirks that defined an era. Prepare to fast-forward almost 3 decades, and uncover how a seemingly ordinary 1997 cent has become yet another hallmark of modern numismatic intrigue. As we shift gears into the late 1990s, the 1997 Lincoln cent steps into the spotlight, carrying echoes of both tradition and the dawn of a new minting era. Though barely a quarter century old, this penny quietly hides its own roster of rarities. Hold one in your hand long enough, and you'll start to notice that beneath its familiar portrait lies a world of subtle errors, chase-worthy die varieties, and condition-driven premiums that can turn pocket change into prized possessions. The story of the 1997 penny begins long before that date stamped at Lincoln's shoulder. Starting in 1982, the mint shifted from solid copper to a copper-plated zinc core, a change driven by rising metal costs and logistical demands. By the time 1997 rolled around, collectors had already grown accustomed to the new sandwich composition, but the marriage of a 2.5-gram copper layer over a zinc heart still carried the potential for production quirks. For many seasoned collectors, the attraction lies in spotting the moments when the machine's precision wavered, when a zinc core peeked through, when a die misaligned, or when the press struck twice in just the wrong spot. Look closely at a standard 1997 obverse and you'll see Brenner's familiar Lincoln, "In God We Trust" arcing overhead, and the date at 3 o'clock. Flip it to the reverse, and the Lincoln Memorial presides in quiet dignity, surrounded by E pluribus unum and 1 cent. At 19.05 millimeters across, these coins are stamped out by the billions, over 13 billion spread across Philadelphia and Denver that year, plus around 3 million proof strikes from San Francisco. Yet even in such massive runs, the mint's high-speed presses occasionally yielded off-center strikes, doubled dies, and repunched mint marks that now stir collectors into action. Detecting a rare 1997 variety often begins with the naked eye or a simple magnifier. Some 1997 P pieces reveal a faint second image ghosting behind the lettering of Liberty or Trust, a sign of a double die obverse. Others from Denver bear a tiny shadowy D beneath the main mint mark, evidence of a repunched mint mark where the punch wandered then returned for a second hit. Off-center errors, though less common, can be dramatic, up to 15% of the design missing entirely, the rest shifted toward one edge, framing Lincoln in a surreal, abstract cameo. Though standard circulated examples hover at face value, condition drives up premiums fast. A well-handled penny with dull brown fields might trade for a few cents above face, while a crisp uncirculated MS-63 in red luster could fetch 30 to 50 cents. Move into MS-65 territory, full original red, no evidence of wear, and prices climb to $1 or $2. By the time you reach MS-67, survivors become scarce, and collectors regularly pay $5 to $10 for that pristine, mirror-bright finish. Error and variety specimens leap far beyond those ranges. A modest 15% off-center MS-64 can command $200 to $300 in online auctions, while more extreme misalignments in MS-65 or above have been known to cross the block for over $500. Double die obverse graded MS-66 RD, red, often break the $350 mark, and repunched mint marks in top grades can draw two-figure bids by eager specialists. Even a rare proof-only variety with a tiny die crack through the memorial steps has sold for more than $1,000 when it surfaced from an old proof set. Speaking of proofs, the 1997 S-proof cent carries its own allure. Struck on specially polished planchets, proofs exhibit mirror-like fields and frosted devices that pop under direct light. While most proofs trade between $1 and $2, those tagged PR67 and higher, especially with deep cameo contrast, can fetch $5 to $10 in today's market. Small blemishes or hairlines will knock a point or two off the grade, so collectors prize those flawless examples saved in archival packs since they left the mint more than 2 decades ago. Beyond price tags, the lore surrounding these coins fuels the chase. One collector recounts finding a barely noticeable double die obverse among dozens of rolls opened at a local credit union, barely a ghost of doubling on the 7 in 1997, yet enough to spark an online bidding war that ended above $400. Another hobbyist stumbled upon a lightly off-center specimen at a neighborhood swap meet, paid face value, then watched astonished onlookers bid it to $275. Stories like these get shared across message boards and social media threads, each image drop igniting fresh excitement among seasoned and novice collectors alike. Surface quirks further enrich the narrative. Planchet lamination sometimes peel thin strips of copper from the rim, revealing zigzag patterns that turn an otherwise ordinary penny into a tactile oddity. Grease-filled strike-throughs can tree branch across Lincoln's coat, and die cracks have occasionally webbed through the dates, each hairline a roadmap of the press's stress points. Although these varieties may not top the auction charts, they fill registry sets and personal collections with character. Color designation plays a pivotal role, too. Red coins, those showing at least 95% original copper hue, demand steeper prices than red-brown or brown examples. Given the dynamics of red copper oxidation, finding a near-perfect red cent from 1997 in MS66 would be akin to spotting a unicorn, highly unlikely, and so commanding that collectors will pay a hefty premium. This makes condition assessment under proper lighting an essential skill, and many enthusiasts equip themselves with LED lamps and magnifiers to sort their finds. For anyone eyeing the 1997 cent as a potential submission to grading services, a few guidelines apply. Only coins that show clear, outstanding features, like fully struck doubling, bold off-centering, or pristine cameo proofs, justify the combined cost of grading and shipping. Raw coins with minor variety traits often retain more value in hand than they would after fees are subtracted. Instead, many collectors choose to document and photograph these pieces meticulously before deciding whether to send them off for encapsulation. What ties all these quirks together is the story they tell about a mint in transition. The mid-90s saw more automated processes, digital record-keeping, and a push toward efficiency. Yet humans still loaded planchets, punched mint marks, and maintained the presses, creating room for subtle errors that now form the backbone of modern collecting. In this way, the 1997 penny stands at the crossroads of analog artistry and digital precision, making it a fitting finale for our exploration of unexpected rarities in everyday change. Now that we've uncovered the secrets of the 1997 penny, it's time to step back and see what threads connect all three of these remarkable coins. In our closing segment, we'll weave together the tales of 2019, 1970, and 1997 to reveal the enduring allure that transforms a simple Lincoln cent into a collector's dream. In the everyday hustle of sorting through pocket change, it's easy to overlook the subtle hints that elevate a common cent into a headline-grabbing rarity. Today, we begin our journey with the 1983 Lincoln cent, an unassuming newcomer that, in certain guises, has surprised even the most seasoned collectors. Born in the wake of rising metal prices, the 1983 penny arrived as part of a new era for the Lincoln cent. Copper costs had skyrocketed through the late 1970s, driving the U.S. Mint to experiment with cost-saving measures. By mid-1982, composition shifted from a solid 95% copper planchet to a sandwich of copper-plated zinc. That change carried forward into 1983, and most cents you handle today are 97.5% zinc core with a thin copper shell. Though the design remained William Barber's iconic Lincoln profile on the obverse and Frank Gasparo's shield motif on the reverse, the metal recipe was fundamentally altered. Without an obvious date stamp marking the transition, these coins quietly entered circulation, blending in with older issues while carrying hidden value. Collectors quickly discovered that not all 1983 strikes were created equal. The most dramatic are the famed double die obverse, DDO, errors. In these specimens, die misalignment during hubbing led to ghostly duplicates of date numerals, the motto, "In God We Trust," and even the word, "Liberty." Under a low-angle light or magnifying loupe, the doubling leaps into view, turning a run-of-the-mill cent into a standout piece. Two primary DDO varieties exist, one where the date shows pronounced doubling on the bottom loops of the threes, and another where lettering across the head is offset. Each demands a careful eye, as slight differences in hub rotation can mean the difference between a mild anomaly and a premium-worth error. Almost as captivating are the repunched mint marks, RPMs, seen on some Denver-minted 1983 cents. During the manual application of mint marks in that era, misaligned punches were sometimes struck again to correct placement. The result is a layered D, slightly askew from its original imprint. RPMs are catalogued by shift direction and magnitude, north over south, east over west, and so forth, and rarer alignments command premiums. Under magnification, the shadow of the first strike balances delicately with the crisp relief of the second, offering a tangible glimpse into the mint's mechanical process. Beyond DDOs and RPMs, a handful of experimental strikes add to the 1983 penny's mystique. A few dozen pattern pieces were struck on alternative planchets, aluminum, brass, even bronze, during composition trials, and a handful have surfaced in private hands or at auction. These patterns display the exact Lincoln design but gleam in unexpected metallic tones. Though not legal tender, they bear the same date and have fetched prices once thought impossible for a modern cent, simply because of their extreme scarcity, often fewer than 5 known examples per metal type. On the auction block, even the common error-free 1983 penny can generate excitement when presented as a high-grade specimen. Standard business strike examples in mint state, MS 65 condition have sold for around $50 to $75, but well-documented error examples routinely outperform that. A top-graded MS 67 DDO privately traded for over $300 in late 2023, while a remarkable aluminum pattern achieved $2,500 at a major numismatic sale earlier that year. Those numbers challenge collectors to re-evaluate their hidden treasures. What feels like a pocket full of pennies could be a small fortune waiting to be discovered. Perhaps the most famous story revolves around a California collector who found a DDO 1983 cent in a batch of change from a local dry cleaner. Unaware of its odd appearance, he spent weeks brushing off grime before noticing the doubled date. By the time he took it to a professional grader, the coin had acquired a unique patina, a mixture of copper sheen and pale zinc edges, giving it an almost ghostly halo. That specific piece, certified MS 66, changed hands for upwards of $1,200, a testament to the power of provenance and the serendipity of discovery. Of course, condition remains king when assigning value to any coin. For the 1983 penny, circulated examples in worn but nice condition, about VF30 to EF40 grades, might bring $1 to $3 each, mostly of interest to completionist sets or error hunters scanning for anomalies. Stepping up to mint state MS 60, uncirculated coins typically start around $5, climbing toward $20 at MS 63. From MS 64 through MS 65, the price jumps more steeply, sometimes doubling with each point, as the surfaces become cleaner, the luster stronger, and any bag marks more discreet. True premium territory begins at MS 66 and above. A flawless MS 67 example without significant spotting or contact marks might bring $150 to $250 if unremarkable, but factor in a well-centered strike, exceptional original mint red coloration, RD designation, and faint cameo frosting on the devices, and you could see 4-figure sums. The rare copper zinc pattern pieces, even in lower grades, tend to start in the high hundreds and ascend rapidly depending on collector demand at the time of sale. As our examination of the 1983 cent concludes, it's clear that beneath its modest appearance lies a tapestry of minting anomalies, experimental trials, and condition-sensitive markets. Whether you're a die variety enthusiast hunting for that elusive doubling, or you simply marvel at the handful of patterns that slipped into private collections, this modern penny proves that even the most recent issues can harbor treasures. Next, we'll shift our focus to a slightly older ambassador of Lincoln's portrait, the 1962 penny, and uncover how mid-century minting practices set the stage for some of the most sought-after copper coins in American numismatics. Shifting gears from our modern penny marvels, let's travel back to the early 1960s, when post-war optimism filled the air and the humble Lincoln cent quietly carried America's promise in its copper sheen. By 1962, 5 years after the Mint's West Point facility ceased striking cents for circulation and before composition changes loomed on the horizon, these coins represented a stable era of Dewey defeats Truman headlines long folded into history. Yet beneath that polished profile of Honest Abe lay subtle clues and collectible quirks that still spark excitement for anyone who pauses to look a little closer. In 1962, the U.S. Mint struck roughly 6.6 billion Lincoln cents across Philadelphia and Denver, alongside a smaller proof run from San Francisco. All featured the familiar 95% copper, 5% zinc alloy that collectors now prize for its rich red coloration when well preserved. The obverse bears Victor David Brenner's high-relief bust of Lincoln, now nearly 60 years old, while Frank Gasparo's shieldback reverse continued to symbolize unity and strength. Production techniques had improved since the penny's debut in 1909, but manual steps like hubbing and mintmark punching still left room for human-scale surprises. Among the most sought-after 1962 varieties are the repunched mint marks. Denver minted cents often show a ghost D punched slightly off-center and then corrected, leaving a faint shadow beneath or beside the final mark. Specialists catalog these RPMs by the direction and magnitude of the shift, north over south, east over west, sometimes even diagonal overlaps. Under 10 times magnification, that layered D stands out, and striking examples in mint state can fetch 2 to 3 times the value of their plain minted peers. Beyond mint mark curios, several double-die obverse varieties exist, albeit far rarer than their mid-50s counterparts. On some 1962 specimens, slight hub misalignment yields doubled lettering in Liberty or the date numerals. These doubling effects tend to be more subtle, almost ghost-like, than the dramatic plumes seen in earlier decades, but under raking light, they shimmer into focus. A sharp-eyed collector recently uncovered a 1962 D double die with pronounced doubling on the 6 and 2, now graded MS65 and commanding a premium north of $800 in private sale. Error coins also make the grade. Off-center strikes up to 30%, clipped planchets that look like someone bit a notch out of the rim, and even die cracks fanning outward from Lincoln's shoulder all intrigue the error-hungry crowd. A sharply off-center 1962 proof penny from San Francisco, struck so far to the right that only Abe's profile remains, sold for over $1,200 at auction last spring. It proved that even proofs, normally cherished for flawless surfaces, can benefit from a touch of chaos. On the subject of proofs, the 1962 Lincoln cent in proof condition is a story unto itself. Struck on specially polished blanks and carefully handled, most brought to market a brilliant, mirror-like finish with frosted devices. Early in the 60s, demand for proof sets surged as hobbyists sought complete annual runs. As a result, surviving proof cents in pristine condition, PR 67 or higher, typically range from $50 to $150, though examples with deep cameo contrast, where Abe's portrait leans boldly against a jet-black field, can eclipse $400 when collectors compete. Auction records underscore the penny's hidden potential. In late 2024, a repunched D on a 1962 D, graded MS66 RD, red, indicating full original copper luster, hammered at $1,100. Shortly thereafter, an astonishing 1962 D double die reverse, DDR, where the shield's vertical stripes appear twice in ghostly relief, brought $2,300 at a major numismatic house. Even more surprising was a 1962 aluminum bronze pattern piece, struck during clandestine alloy trials. One of only 3 known survivors, it realized $12,500, underscoring how pattern coins can dwarf business strike values. Stories from the trenches of pocket change continue to inspire. A retired schoolteacher in Ohio once donated a jar of pennies to her grandson, who casually flipped through them until a slight misplacement of Lincoln's nose caught his eye. Unaware of its significance, he held onto it for months before posting a photo online. Equipped with collective wisdom, the online community identified it as a 1962 DRPM. A local dealer, intrigued by the well-preserved red luster and crisp strike, paid $500 on the spot, far more than anyone expected from a jar of dinner money cents. Condition drives value across the board. Circulated 1962 cents graded good, G4, to very fine, VF20, often change hands for face value to about 50 cents, mainly of interest to set builders completing circulation date and mintmark sets. Move up to about uncirculated, $50 or mint state, MS60, where surfaces show only negligible friction and original color, you'll see prices from $5 to $30 each. As graders find fewer bag marks and stronger luster, coins in MS-63 might go for $100, MS-65 around $350, and the rare MS-67 examples can crack the four-figure barrier, especially with red designation or cameo contrast. Proof and cameo variations add layers, too. A standard PR-65 proof cent might fetch $60, but PR-67 deep cameo pieces regularly cross the block at $300 to $500. Collectors chasing a flawless Sheldon-graded PR-69 single coin won't find many, and when one appears, it can shatter expectations, often exceeding $1,000 without breaking a sweat. Condition isn't just about eye appeal, it reflects a coin's life story. A softly worn VF example might have jostled in pocket change for decades, rubbing shoulders with quarters and dimes, while an MS-67 specimen has likely spent most of its life untouched in tight-sealed bank bags or archival sleeves. Both have stories to tell, but the crispness of Lincoln's coat lapel, the strength of the shield's bars, and the glow of original red copper make all the difference when collectors negotiate prices. All told, the 1962 Lincoln cent occupies a sweet spot between mass-produced workhorse and niche market gem. Its common appearance in everyday transactions belies an undercurrent of minting anomalies, die varieties, and condition-driven value leaps. Whether you're sorting through pocketfuls for a mint state surprise or bidding online for that elusive repunched mint mark, these coins reward both patience and a trained eye. As our time machine rolls forward once more, the next stop is 1995, when postmodern minting processes collided with new collecting trends. Hold on to your loop, our final Lincoln cent adventure is just around the corner. Gliding forward from mid-century craftsmanship to the tail end of the millennium, the 1995 Lincoln cent arrived at a time when collecting trends were shifting. Mint sets were booming, online auctions were opening new markets, and a generation of hobbyists was honing its eye on modern copper. At first glance, the 1995 penny wears its familiar Lincoln shield design like its predecessors, but dig a little deeper and you'll find late 90s quirks, handfuls of errors, and surprisingly vibrant market dynamics that keep even veteran numismatists intrigued. By 1995, the Lincoln cent's copper makeup was firmly established, a 97.5% zinc core clad in a thin layer of copper, unchanged since 1982. Production split between Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D, while San Francisco continued issuing proof strikes for annual sets. That year's mintage was hefty, over 8 billion coins combined, yet the sheer volume didn't eliminate opportunities for noteworthy varieties. The same Brenner Barber obverse and Gasparo Shield reverse had nearly 9 decades behind them, but age hadn't dulled the potential for mint state brilliance or mechanical surprises during striking. One of the most talked about 1995 varieties is the double die obverse, DDO. Unlike the more dramatic doublings of the 1950s, the 1995 DDO tends to manifest as faint echoes on the motto, "In God We Trust," and slight ghosting on the date numerals. Under sidelight or loop magnification, you'll spot a delicate twin line just above the primary inscription, a telltale sign of hub misalignment. While common examples graded MS-63 might tip collectors $25 to $40, a fully struck MS-67 DDO-RD, full red, sold for $450 in a 2023 Heritage auction, underscoring the premium that state-of-the-art preservation can command. Complementing the DDO are a few repunched mint mark, RPM, survivors, particularly from Denver. When the D punch shifted or was reset to refine alignment, early impressions sometimes linger as faint artifacts beneath or beside the final mark. These RPMs are catalogued by direction, north over south, west over east, and intensity, with the rarer, double punch overlaps fetching premiums above standard era variety cents. A well-documented 1995 D RPM carrying a pronounced east over west ghost earned $120 at auction in 2022, but when re-examined and slabbed as MS-65RD, its value climbed to $375 among RPM specialists. Error enthusiasts also prize off-center strikes. In 1995, planchets misfed during high-speed production could miss the die by 10 to 50%, yielding coins where Lincoln's profile drifts toward one edge. A particularly attractive 35% off-center error, with full date and motto intact, realized $160 at a regional show last year. Less common are clipped planchets, where the blank was improperly cut, leaving a crescent-shaped missing section. Collectors drawn to these anomalies view them as snapshots of minting in motion, mistakes that reveal the mechanical ballet beneath the gleaming surfaces. Proof Lincoln cents from San Francisco, with their mirror-like fields and frosted devices, also offer room for nuance. In 1995, two proof finishes circulated, the Standard Proof, PR, and the Deep Cameo, DCAM. The latter exhibits stark contrast, with Abe's profile standing out crisply against a jet-black backdrop. PR 67 specimens often trade for $25 to $35 each, while DCAM pieces at PR 67 can range from $75 to $125. Rarely, a DCAM-graded PR 69 surfaced in 2024 and crossed the block at $300, illustrating the value premium that cameo contrast and top-tier grades confer. Among the more exotic specimens are a small handful of pattern strikes on alternative planchets, trial pieces minted to test new alloys or finishes. In the mid-1990s, there was fleeting experimentation with brass-clad zinc, an idea that didn't stick but left a few examples in researcher archives. When one brass pattern appeared at auction in 2022, its warm golden hue and Lincoln relief drew immediate interest, selling for $3,200. With fewer than a dozen known, these pattern cents occupy a special niche between playing card curiosities and bona fide legal tender oddities. Market values for the run-of-the-mill 1995 cents still track closely with grade and eye appeal. A circulated VF30 to EF45 piece typically brings face value to about 10 cents, with most interest from set builders filling album holes. Stepping up to $50 Australian or MS60, pristine surfaces and full copper red, RD, coloration can command $1 to $3. From MS63 to MS64, prices climb more steeply, often $10 to $25, reflecting cleaner fields and sharper details. Once you hit MS65, collectors start chasing scarce survivors west of the mint bag. MS65 RD examples typically sell for $40 to $75, while MS66 RD coins, especially those with full mint red luster, command $150 to $200. Top-end specimens occasionally bust through the four-figure barrier. In late 2023, a true gem MS67 RD from Philadelphia set a new benchmark when it hammered at $1,150, buoyed by razor-sharp strike, full original red toning, and virtually no contact marks. Its original owner, a dealer who'd held it in a sealed bank roll since 1995, never suspected it would one day dwarf the value of his collection. That sale spotlighted how quietly coins can appreciate when sheltered from circulation and the elements. Beyond numbers, personal stories bring the 1995 penny to life. A nurse in Florida once discovered a DDO in a bag of charity drive change, then spent an afternoon researching online forums before realizing she'd stumbled onto a regional rarity. When she consigned it to a specialist dealer, she learned that subtler modern errors are often the hardest to authenticate, and when confirmed, the most satisfying to find. Another collector, a retired machinist, cherished a full band-clad example, where the copper-zinc bond shows no visible separation at the rim, as a testament to minting quality control, valuing it as much for its technical merit as its market price. Condition remains the single strongest value driver. A moderately circulated 1995 cent graded VG8, good, tells a story of daily commerce, wallets, vending machines, coin jars, while a flawless MS67 RD coin embodies near-factory perfection. Between those poles lie countless gradations, each with its own collector base, red versus brown color designations, subtle luster variations, cameo contrast, and even strike centering. For many, the hunt for a premium survivor is as thrilling as the coin's ultimate resale price. As we wrap up our exploration of the 1995 Lincoln cent, it's clear that modern cents can be every bit as rewarding as their antique counterparts. Whether you're chasing a faint double-die echo, a proof cameo standout, or one of those rare test planchet patterns, the modest penny continues to surprise. And with that, our journey through 3 decades of Lincoln cents comes full circle, yet the story of these small copper wonders is far from over. In every pocket, album, and